Hi, my name is Brett Allison, and I am a consultant on the SAN side for IntelliMagic. Today I wanted to just do a feature spotlight for our 3PAR support. It includes system level reporting and then the ability to identify if there's any issues on any of the key components. There's also capacity configuration. We'll just kind of walk through some of the different areas that we can really help out with. So let's take a look at the 3PAR disk storage system dashboard or health insight report. You'll see there's a rating of 2.46. We'll talk about what that means. What we have here is a list of the storage systems on the y-axis, and then across the top we have the performance key indicators or KPIs. You'll see that the rating here of the fiber front-end response time is 2.46. So there's some concerns in regards to the front-end fiber response time. The nature of the ratings is that the goal is to assess risk in relationship to how much time we're spending above the performance warning and exception thresholds. In this case, 2.46, that's a pretty high risk, and that's noted by the exclamation point in red, the large exclamation point in red. The other metrics appear to be green. The way that the rating works is anything between 0 and 0.1 is a green, between 0.1 and 0.3, which indicates at least 10% of the time is above the warning threshold. That will be a yellow warning sign, and above 0.3 will be a exception indicator, and that has to do with spending at least 10% of the time above the exception. So let's take a look. Let's drill down on this one and take a look at the back or the front end. So we see that the overall response times are pretty good, but there's some concern on the front end, and we can drill down to the front end, and we see response times are rather high on a number of the ports. So these are the ports that we're primarily concerned with, and we can click on identify, and we can see the connect. We can click on identify again, and we can see how that port's doing, how the IO rate is, and we're also able to look at the associated switch ports and zones if they're being collected. So we can see in a real quick view which hosts are driving the load and which hosts are zoned to those ports that are having the high response time. The other thing to note is the thresholds. The thresholds are based on a number of factors. For the front-end fiber response time thresholds, those are based on several variables that go into a variable called connected data rate, which is designed to show serialization that's happening within the system. And the goal is to identify performance issues and not have false positives. The other thing that we do is we'll build in thresholds around the system capabilities, and you can see that in the lighter areas there's no concern. The darker area is where we start to hit in thresholds. And you can see the threshold, there's a DSS or an overall system rate. There is a rate for the per port, and in some cases we'll set up and configure the throughput for the actual host adapters if that makes sense. We also provide variable response time both on the front end read and then the response time, the front end fiber response times. You can see those squiggly lines in the background, and that's based on the workload, the block size, and things like that. That's all embedded intelligence that is differentiating us from most of the other products that are out there that just report on things. The other one of the other report sets within the 3PAR viewpoint is the configuration. This has capacity. Capacity on 3PARs is a bit tricky, but we handle all of that accurately and using the actual 3PAR native data. You can view that for the utilized capacity by cluster, by allocated capacity. You can also view it by the disk drive tiers. So one of the important things to do is to make sure things are well balanced, both on the front end and the back end. This chart gives you a view of how well balanced the port throughput is by the different storage systems. And the minimum and the maximum are shown in yellow, and the 10th and the 90th percentile are shown in the green rectangle, and then the green dot is the average. So if I click on it and click on drill down, you'll notice that the ports are not very well balanced. There's 4 ports that are much busier than other ports. And then as far as on the back end, one of the things that you can do is you can look at how busy the back end is in terms of the drive rate. And so we can drill down to disk tiers, and we can see that this 10K has the majority of the workload as opposed to the SSD, which may or may not be appropriate depending on the actual amount of busyness or IOPS on that. So we could actually look at the actual disk drive. This is an interesting chart because you see the 3 different bands here. This band here represents the SSDs. They're only slightly more busy than the 10Ks, and that's probably not a good thing. So this whole system needs to be looked at to make sure the policies are appropriate. We also have the front-end response times, throughput activity, all that in the front-end port views, and you can drill down to ports and to the associated connected ports and zones and other things like that. Now, the other area that you might want to look at is just going straight to the volumes and seeing how the volumes are doing, or you may want to look at the host clusters and see what their throughput is and response time. And just a real quick look on the host cluster, you can see this one host is driving the majority of the load. Hey, that happens to be the same time that those ports are real busy. So lastly, the backend shows how busy the backend drives are, top 20 backend drives, your drive rates, your response times, etc. And you can see as I was clicking through the different reports, I'm able to drill down to the next level and get down to the details and identify root cause. But more importantly, the health check gives you a way to monitor this proactively and avoid performance issues in the future. If you have any questions, please give us a shout. Thanks for listening.